Hello, Five Star Nation, and happy Monday morning. It's me, Shelly, and I am here this week with the running tumbling technique war results. As you know, we did this right before we left on break, and then we had our holiday break. So we hope everybody enjoyed your holiday. Today we're going to be releasing the results for running tumbling. And we gave the kids an extra week last week to kind of get back into things and moving after we had been off for 3 weeks. So this week, our focus will be elite sequences. And the technique war for this week will be based on the scoring off of our elite stunt sequences. So this last week we did running tumbling for their sequences that were scored. So when we talk about running tumbling, it is just like when we had talked about standing tumbling, right? They have the similar drivers. So the only thing that we changed this time is we looked specifically at technique and difficulty. So they're getting a total score of 10.0 instead of just out of the 5 like we did last time, looking at just the execution of the skills. All right, so when we look at difficulty, how that's calculated is based on the number of kids on the team. So a team doesn't have to have everybody on the team be able to do every skill to score in the high range. When we talk about running tumbling is what we call cumulative. So basically that every pass that's done throughout the routine is added together to count as part of the running tumbling, right? So if a team to be in the high range, it's most of the team must compete a level appropriate running tumbling pass, right? And as they get into the higher levels, those are a little bit different. Into the world's divisions, it's an elite level appropriate pass, and they kind of have some different requirements for that, right? So for level 6, a straight full isn't enough. It needs to be a specialty to full or a double, those kind of things to count as into those elite passes. So when we talk about difficulty for levels 1 through 5, we're talking about I'm pulling up the score sheet right here, so I'm giving you the exact numbers here. Most people must complete a level appropriate pass. So for running tumbling, most of the team performs a level appropriate pass, and that's to be in the high range. So if we talk about our average team is about 19 to 20 kids. So if we talk about a team that has 16 to 19 kids, most would be 9. So it's basically 50% plus 1 have to be throwing that pass within that range, 16 to 19 kids, to score in the high range. So if you think about that, on a team of 16 to 19, we only need 9 running tumbling passes to hit that score sheet. So you'll see that the vast majority of our teams have more running tumbling in their routine than is required. That is why you'll also notice that as the season goes on, or as we start competing and we're seeing our numbers, some tumbling passes might be taken out. We often get comments on technique scores where we're trying to bring those up. So we're looking for things like legs being perfectly together and back handsprings, good sets with our arms by our ears, in our tucks and our layouts, good shapes, twisting, good shapes in our twisting scales. All of those things are things that hurt our technique. And so if we have more than enough people throwing that pass, then it only makes sense for us to take out the ones that aren't as strong technique, because that helps drive our technique score higher. And as we talked about before, technique is worth 5 points and difficulty is worth 5 points. Now, when you're talking difficulty, the lowest score you can score on difficulty is a 3.0. And that would be that you didn't meet the requirements at all for running tumbling within that level. So let's say that is a level 2 team that doesn't throw a single round off handspring, right? They have a whole bunch of back walkovers in their routine. They're in the wrong level, but they would score a 3.0. A 3.5 is low. And that would mean that most of the team performs a level appropriate pass. So that's between a 3.5 and a 4. Okay? 4.0 to 5.0. Sorry, I'm reading this. I'm on the wrong guy here. I was on running. Less than a majority is the low. 3.5 to 4 is less than a majority of the team throws that pass. 4.0 to 4.5 is the mid-range, and that's the majority of the team. And 4.5 to 5.0 is the high range, and that's where most of the team does. So we aim to have all of our teams score in that, in the high difficulty range, right? So within that range, you're maybe asking yourself, well, what brings our numbers up within a range, right? What takes us from a 4.5 to a 5? So things like the number of people throwing the pass at once. So big, large synchronized passes, more specialty passes, right? So in level 3, is it just a round of handspring tuck, or is a front punch pause round of handspring tuck, right? Is an aerial with a tuck. And those kind of specialty passes help drive those scores up. And if there's large quantities of kids tumbling at once, that also helps to drive that difficulty up, because it's clearly harder to have one kid, or it's harder to have 5 kids throw a pass together synchronized than it is for one athlete to do that, right? So it's kind of where you see the difference in those drivers. Also, the pace of the tumbling, right? Is it very slow that comes out of the corner and every one an athlete's going, go on one, right? It's slow. Or is it fast paced? There's lots happening, lots moving at all times. Okay, so that kind of gives you the idea in difficulty. When it comes to execution, it is actually the same exact drivers as it was in standing tumbling. So remember, we talked about those standing tumbling drivers. They're a way for kids to either earn or lose points off of that perfect score. So say everybody starts with a perfect 5.0 in technique, and then each driver has 3/10 in points, where they can potentially lose 1/10, 2/10, or 3/10 off of that driver that kind of drives their score down based on poor technique. Okay, the drivers that we talked about last week in standing tumbling are the same this week for running tumbling, and those are approach. So things like arm placement into a pass and skill, the swing, the prep, the chest placement, and the flow of the skills into the passes. Okay, speed. Consistent speed through their tumbling. Is the pass speeding up? Is it getting stronger? Connection of the passes. Body control. So we're talking about head placement, arms and shoulders, hips, leg placement, shapes, all those kind of things. Pointed toes, okay? Landings. Are our landings controlled? Do we land and freeze? Do we land and stumble? Do we land and fall forward? Are we landing piked, or are we in the right position? Legs and feet being together. Chest placement, whether they finished or completed the pass and skill, and any incomplete twisting are things that are being affected by landings. Okay, and then synchronization being timing. So when we throw those passes all together, right, are they exactly on? And you can lose up to 1, 2, or 3/10 in each of those categories to get your ultimate technique score. You add that with your difficulty score to get your final score out of 10. Early in the season, we see those lower, and as the season progresses and we fine-tune things, we see those scores continue to raise. So great job to all of our teams that competed this week and got those videos in and over to our judges. Our coaches now have the feedback, and they'll be able to take that and keep pushing and growing as we get ready for our first event on the 30th. We are excited for these results, so check out the winners after this. We'll see you next week as we talk about elite stunt sequences. Congratulations, winners.